Good evening, everybody. We're back at it again with Pitt assistant coach Luke Pletcher. Luke was a two-time All-American for Ohio State, three-time PA state champ, four-time Powerade champ, Super 32 champ, Flow Natch champ, and so on and so forth. So first things first, Luke, thank you for the time to take it. Thank you for the time today.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me on.
So kind of like I was alluding to earlier, you've done a lot of winning in your life from PJWs all the way through to the senior level now where you're at. How were you able to stay so successful throughout the course of your life?
Um, it's a good question. I think when I was younger, I just kind of had a knack for wrestling. I was kind of pretty good at it from the start. And I don't know if that's whether it's just because I'm athletic or strong for my size, but I was just kind of good at it from the beginning, and being good at it made me like it a little bit more than some of the other sports. So I was able to put more time into it because I liked what I was doing and I kind of just grasped the sport.
So with that being said, like how beneficial do you think it was growing up in Southwest PA? I mean, obviously that's one of the nation's hotbeds for wrestling. So how beneficial do you think that was growing up?
Uh, Really beneficial. Just from the time I was 7 or 8, probably 8 years old, I really started going to clubs. And looking back on it, it's pretty crazy to, think of all the names and all the people that were in the same club growing up. And, we kind of migrated from club to club, but we all stuck together. So it was very beneficial to have a bunch of really good partners and, partners that push you, and everybody liked wrestling. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, you competed a lot in a lot of the nation's premier tournaments throughout your high school career. Was that more so was that just you seeking tough competition, or do you think that was more so to kind of get your name out there in terms of like recruiting or whatnot?
Definitely just to compete, just against the best people. I've kind of done that since the time I was tiny. Me and my dad joke about it a little bit now, looking back on it, how many tournaments we went to, and how many places we went just to seek out tough wrestlers. And growing up through high school, recruiting never really was on my mind until June 15th of my junior year, I think, maybe senior year. I can't even remember how it was back then, but that was never really a thought until that happened.
So you brought up June 15th being like the first day that like coaches could contact you or whatnot. So could you describe kind of like what your recruiting process was like and like what ultimately the silver lining was with choosing Ohio State?
Yeah, I honestly forgot that it was the first day that like coaches could call me, and I just remember I think I was sleeping on the couch and just got like my first phone call. I can't really remember who it was, and I got a lot of phone calls that first day, which was really cool. And I think my mom wrote them all down because it was just like all day long. It felt like, and kind of just kept track of it to keep for whenever I was older. And then I kind of got sick of the process pretty quick. I'm not a person who really likes to talk about myself or talk about the things that I did, and so I was kind of like over the salesmanship and this place is awesome and you're awesome and everything's awesome. I kind of got sick of that really quick, and I wanted to get the process over with. And yeah, so I took a couple visits, and yeah, Ohio State they didn't really reach out to me, and they didn't recruit me at all. And I was like, man, this is like a school that is kind of close to here. And I was a big Logan Stieber fan growing up, and I was like, man, I've known this place, and they're pretty good. And I was like, Dad, you got to call this guy, like try to get in contact with someone. I want to at least like go check it out and see if they have any interest. And my dad somehow got Jagger's number and kind of scheduled an unofficial. And now that I know the ropes of recruiting, it feels like that I was like not a real priority, but I kind of feel like I won him over in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you look at like, the guys like around your size when you first committed there, top, like you said, Logan Stieber, he was a 41 pounder.
Mhm.
Tom Sella was a guy that, you could work out with every day. So like, would you say that those were kind of like the two big like driving forces or like a couple of the incentives, I guess, to, you know,
Yeah, for sure. I know when I was going through the recruiting process, I wanted to go somewhere where what that they've done what I was trying to do. Um, they had national champions and guys around my weight that'd be good training partners, and I didn't want to go that far from home. And they kind of checked all the boxes, and it was everything that I wanted.
So back to your freshman year at Ohio State, right? You were in redshirt for the first couple weeks. Then, like, I think how I was like right around like this mid-December, your redshirt got pulled, and then you not only were you like a true freshman in the Big Ten, but you're also bumping up a weight. How difficult was that your freshman year? Just like adjusting from doing a lot of winning to like kind of like a learning curve in a sense.
Yeah, I wanted to wrestle right away. It was kind of the plan from the beginning that I was going to start it. Or at least they told me. Maybe they were just trying to have me, keep working hard and not like get complacent in high school. But the plan I thought was that I was going to wrestle 33 right away. But then Tomasello decided to bump up, so they were just like, you'll just redshirt this year. So I redshirted and started wrestling a couple tournaments at 33. Was doing well, and then the 41 pounder got hurt, and I think it was right around the Vegas tournament. He called and was like, "Hey, uh, you can wrestle if you want, and we think you'd be a benefit to the team." And the team was pretty good. I think we took second that year or something along those lines. But we were pretty good in it. I felt like I could help, and I felt like I was pretty ready. I wasn't sure about 41, but at that point, you don't know what the future holds, and I was healthy and wanted to go, so I went, and I think it was really beneficial. And I started off pretty hot. I don't think I lost until maybe Midlands or something like that. But I was doing well, and I felt like I was getting better as the weeks went on. And yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I think that kind of jump started my career more than a red shirt would.
Yeah. So, in I guess in like what specific areas do you think like that year helped you? And like, was it like a mental thing, like kind of like like you knew you kind of like belonged? Was it like a technique thing, or like I don't know, like describe that a little bit, like how like in what areas did it kind of like help you? Do you think?
I think I've always been. I felt like I just needed to get my hand. Like the more I wrestled people, the better it felt like for me. And I knew I was ready in the room, because I was competitive with some of the guys that were doing pretty well, and maybe I wasn't beating them, but I felt like I belonged. At least I was supposed to be there, and it felt like I belonged. And then the more I wrestled, the better the competition got as we got through the Big Ten season. And they weren't. I might have been losing, but I felt like they're not that much better than me. It's like the more I wrestled and the more big events and the more big time guys that I got to wrestle kind of showed me this is where I need to get better, and might not happen this year, but it'll come if I just keep working at it.
So so you went 141 your freshman year, and then you cut back down to 33.
Yep.
Compare and contrast, like I know that people always say that there's like differences between like certain weight classes. Like what was the transition back like back down to 133 after spending a full season at 41?
Um, it was difficult, but it was kind of, as to be expected. I'm not a huge person. I'm pretty short, but I'm thick, and as I was getting down, it was tough, but that's just what you did. You just lost the weight, and you felt as good as you could feel. And I felt like I got the process down better as the year went on. And yeah, there was not too much difference. Maybe the guys are a little bit not quite as strong, but maybe a little quicker. Or, it's not too much different.
Yeah, so you're a back-to-back AA at 33. Your sophomore and junior year, but no, your senior year kind of on a like on another level. What do you kind of like attribute that to? Kind of like I don't know, like you were like a lot more offensive, a lot more dominant. Like, what do you like kind of attribute that to? Do you think?
I think I think a lot of it, sometimes I got this question a lot whenever I was in it, and I felt like it was that, you're up at 41 and that's the reason. And I don't think it's that. I think I got better at wrestling. And the summer after my junior year, it was just, doing some reflecting of, I won a lot of close matches, and that was kind of that was my MO. And I was sick of winning that way. I wanted to be a national champion, and taking fourth twice in a row and losing in the semis and close matches just wasn't enough for me. So it was like I had to make a change in some way, and my training changed where it was a lot more, attacking and not caring about the practice, but the practice was better because I was getting it better at wrestling, so it was the more work I put in the wrestling room of more attacks during live wrestling or dialing in my drilling or whatever it was. I just got better at wrestling, and I wrestled with the attitude of I'm going to put some points on the board.
Yeah, so I'm sure you got this next question a lot coming in. So obviously, your senior year, you're the 1 seed at NCAAs, and fortunately, the tournament got canceled due to the pandemic. How devastating was that for you? When it all went down.
Yeah, I mean, it sucked. There's no other way around it. But it kind of, looking back on it, still there's days it pops up in my mind how I get frustrated and wish that I could have went out and competed. And there's no guarantee that I would have won, but I would have liked to try to earn that. But it also kind of led me to where I am today. It's like I'm close to my hometown, and there was a position that opened up at that time. And if I would have wrestled, maybe things would have changed. Maybe I would have wanted to stay and train at Ohio State, or a lot of things could have changed. My life could have been different in that way. So we kind of have to move on. And at the time it seemed like a really big problem. And looking back there, it caused a lot of issues, and there were some scary things, but life kind of moved on, and it's going to always have to do that.
Yeah, so exactly. Like you're kind of saying, like, not only did your wrestling career as a Buckeye, come to a close, but you're also graduating, right? And trying to figure out your life. How difficult was that? Like trying to figure out like your next steps during such uncertain times and everything.
Yeah, it was weird. That was probably the thing I was most upset with. It was like, yes, I obviously wanted to wrestle the national tournament and, go through that, but I was also excited to like I've been pretty dialed in on wrestling since I've been 7th or 8th grade, and all the other things came second to me. So I was kind of excited to like, have more fun with my buddies and, live the last couple of months of college and figure out what I wanted to do afterwards. And so that I was upset with, but it was, it kind of came normally. And I had this opportunity, and that was kind of talked about before the pandemic. And I knew this was an option and had some other options, but nothing was really going to beat coming home and starting coaching an hour from where I grew up.
Yeah. So how is it coaching guys that like not only have you grew up against, but you actually like competed against a lot of the guys? I think of like a guy like Mickey Philippi, who you wrestled 100 times. Guy like Cole Matthews and whatnot. Like, how is it now? Like, you're coaching guys that you're not much older than. So.
Yeah, it's cool and it's different, but I think it can also be beneficial because I get what those guys are going through. I'm not as removed, it's like these things just happen to me, and I kind of sometimes feel like I can get through to them sometimes, because it's not as big of an authority figure because we are the same age, so we can kind of talk about things. And it's really cool because I've known these people like Mickey, like you said, we've grew up and wrestled in the same club. And Matthews, I've known of him. He wrestled in a couple tournaments that were right around at our high school growing up. Nino, I've grown up wrestling with before he was too big.
Yeah.
So I've known all these people, and I know a lot of the guys on the team. And Now it's kind of getting to the point where the guys on the team now were like the little guys of the club whenever I was in high school, so that's cool. I have my younger brothers on the team, and all of his buddies that he grew up wrestling with are also there. So it's like I've known everybody. I've known these guys for forever, and that's a pretty unique and cool thing about this team.
Yeah, and you're in an interesting position too, because it's like not only you're a coach, but you're also actively competing as well. So like, how do you like balance being like a coach and then like finding time to like prioritize your training? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult, but the team is the priority. And I wrestle with the guys in practice, and that's kind of where I stay in shape, and I still work on some things, and I like to figure out wrestling, whether it's their problems or mine, like by trying it. I'm kind of a hands-on learner, so I try to get into the positions that they're struggling in, and we'll figure it out that way for them. And then for me, I kind of, like I said, the team is the priority, and I, leading up to maybe the US Open or different events that I might wrestle in, then I'll kind of lock in on myself for a couple weeks. But I'm at a point now where I'm kind of just competing because I like to wrestle and I like to compete, and I like to feel that. I like to feel the butterflies of getting ready for something and kind of locking in mentally and physically. So
Yeah. So you brought up the U.S. Open, right? How do you? Obviously, you didn't necessarily get the result you want. Obviously, you would have liked to have been in Final X wrestling Yanni, but how do you think you performed overall there?
not bad. I feel like there's obviously some things that I did well, and there's some things that you look back on like, what were you doing? But that's kind of always with competing. You pick up things that you learn, and you're like, well, I'm never going to do that again. And next time you go out, you might still do it again, but then you try to fix it again. So it's like, that's what I love about competing, is that it just kind of reflects the areas that you might be neglecting in your training, or you just haven't seen before. Like Henderson, for an example, he presents a lot of different problems, and I've wrestled him before, and you just get in these situations where I feel like I know, like, he's baiting me, but it feels so good. I feel like this is where I got to go, even though I knew in the moment that I shouldn't be there. I shouldn't go into this position, and that's the fun part about competing. It's like you learn.
Yeah. So with that being said, do you think you're gonna like, are you gonna go to any of the national team camps? Like, do you have an opportunity to do so, or do you plan on competing at all, or do you not really know?
I don't really know. I probably won't be going to any camps. I'm not on the national team. But yeah, I don't know what's next competing wise. I'll probably do the US Open again, and it's Olympic team trials. Hopefully I make it. That's the plan there. And then but still the priority is still coaching right now. I'm doing, if I can make it work, I'm going to do it. But if not, those guys are priority number one.
Yeah. So I'm guessing 65 is gonna be the weight for you.
Yeah. Yep. 65.
So like I said, you've been doing this wrestling thing a long time. So what are some like most memorable moments, do you think, in your career, and like what's like probably like the most devastating loss that you think you've had in your career?
Okay. We'll do memorable would be, I would say, that's a tough question. I would say my first state title in high school was pretty memorable. Just because, like, growing up, I started going to the high school state tournament maybe sixth grade, fifth grade, I don't know. But my dad and my uncle and my cousin and my brother would drive up for the semis, AAA semis, and we'd watch the semis, but then we would drive home just in time to watch the finals. It was weird, but we wouldn't stay and watch the finals. We'd just go up to watch the semifinals, which was an awesome round. And I remember being young, just downstairs, and it was before there was like any live stream. It was just the radio.
Yeah.
And So it was like on the internet, and I just listened to these guys talk about matches, and I would try to follow it, and you could just hear the sounds of the buzzers. And I still think about it every time I go to watch. And it's like, man, that's this high school state tournament at the Giant Center. And it's like, this is cool. And then the first time you're out there, you're like, this is it. You know, I made it. It's big time now. And it's like finally doing that after, you know, dreaming of doing it forever it was awesome. And then, you know, a couple matches in college that I think about were like my first big win was like Stevan Micic at Cliff Keen, where it was like, I think he was ranked like maybe second at the time. And it was when my first year at 33, and it was like, that was the win where it's like, okay, now I'm in this, you know, I belong up with these guys. I can beat these guys. I got 3 years to do this, you know, I'm in the mix now. And then most devastating would probably be again against Miches. This guy's caused me some pain. Was we wrestled a match against Michigan at home in the Schottenstein Center, which is like the big basketball arena. And this was like one of our better teams, and it was like sold out, and they had all the bells and whistles. And I don't know if I was first or I was second. I don't know, but they had like we ran out in fire, and it was like, oh, I got chills, and I was standing up there, and there was something going on with the Big Ten Network stream. So I was just standing out there, and like my music was playing, and like I'm a country guy, so I had like an old school Hank Williams Jr. song, and the crowd was like singing the song. I was like, this is great. I feel like I'm in a concert. And then I go out and I got smoked. So it's like I went from the highest to highs and then just got smoked. But yeah, that one hurt.
So this was I was talking to my buddies about some things to talk about. And this kind of came up a bunch of something that, they wanted me to talk to you about. But going back to your senior year at the Giant Center, right? You had that crazy quarterfinal match with Sasso, right? Talk about like, I don't know, kind of like your emotions going into the match, where it was like, that was basically the state finals match in the quarters. Like, how did you feel about it going in? And like, I don't know, like when you first saw the brackets getting get posted, like how'd you feel about that match?
I can't say I didn't care, because I would have liked it to been later. But I was confident, and I thought like, this is probably the finals match. And I felt like if I could win that one, I would be pretty good to go. But I wrestled him earlier in the year, and he presented that was the first time I felt somebody like that. And I was able to, figure out what I needed to do. And it got a little hairy at the end, but overall I felt pretty confident in how the match was going. But again, that was kind of the way I wrestled, and I would do what I needed to do and not much more, which looking back on, I wish I would have fixed earlier.
Did you guys talk about that match at all when you guys got to, were eventually teammates at all, or was that just kind of like, it was
we didn't really talk about it, but if we were wrestling, Jaggers would make a big deal about it. He'd start yelling, but I think we just mutually decided to not bring any of that up. He's a competitive guy, and so am I. So I wouldn't, if it would have been the other way around, I wouldn't have been happy if he would have brought it up.
So the last thing I got for you, Luke, before I let you go, is this: what would be the biggest like piece of advice that you would either give to like yourself, your brother, or like any other, I guess, freshman coming into college, transitioning from high school to college?
I'd say a couple things. I would say one would be to realize that it's a long game. So stay consistent, and like don't try to get too low, because it will get bumpy somewhere it's going to become bumpy, and you got to be able to willing to stay the course and, make adjustments. But if it's not working, doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. So I would say that, and be a student of wrestling, where it's like you got to be kind of analytical. But that's how I think. I'm a math brain, and I think of things like a problem, and you try to solve different issues. So that would be what I would think, and have fun. It's not that serious.
Yeah, man. Like I said, Luke, thank you so much for the time tonight. I'm gonna let you go. Yeah, like I said, thank you so much for
Thanks, man.
talk to me today.